technical issues continue to hold back the PlayStation 5. So Biomutant, a game that is going to be released on May 25th, looks like a really cool open world RPG where you're playing as these animal style characters. I don't really know what they're called or anything, but it's a game that I've had on my radar from what I have seen and been watching the gameplay videos, and it just looks like a ton of fun. Now recently, THQ Nordic and Experiment 101, who are the developers behind the game, put out some gameplay videos comparing the Xbox Series X version and the PlayStation 5 version. There was one major difference between the two versions. That difference being that on the PlayStation 5, Biomutant is only going to be running a native 1080p upscaled to 4K, but on the Xbox Series X, it is going to be running a native 4K. Both versions are going to be running at 60 frames per second, so you're still going to be getting that buttery smooth frame rate, but there is a big resolution difference. Now, this has caused an uproar on social media, particularly amongst the PlayStation fans, which in my opinion is absolutely absurd the way that the fans are going about this. We are seeing a lot of people saying that they're not going to purchase the game now because of this, because it's not native 4K on the PS5, and really just going after the developers and THQ Nordic, calling them lazy and all this kind of stuff because of the fact that it is native 1080p upscaled to 4K on the PS5. Now here's the thing, since the beginning of this generation of consoles, the Xbox Series X has been and will continue to be the more powerful console. Just from a technical specification standpoint, it is a better console than the PlayStation 5. It doesn't in any way mean that the PlayStation 5 is a bad console, but if you're just sitting back and looking at things logically, the Xbox Series X has more power than the PS5. Not only that, it is a far superior console when it comes to backwards compatibility with things like smart delivery and cross-generational games. This is not the first game that we have seen since the release of the PS5 and the Xbox Series X where a cross-generational game comes out and performs better on the Xbox Series X. Whether you want to say the only reason this is happening is because it is an Xbox One PS4 game and it is being ported over to the Series X and the PS5 is absolutely irrelevant. What it does show is that the Xbox Series X and Microsoft thought ahead about all of this kind of stuff before the release of these consoles, and they have made a technically superior console in this regard. And blaming THQ Nordic and Experiment 101 for the failings of the PlayStation 5 when it comes to cross-generational games and it comes to backwards compatibility, to me is absolutely crazy. Now, I understand you have your money, you spend it however you want. So if you don't want to play and buy this game because it is not a native 4K, I mean, that is your choice. It is your money. But if this is a game that you've been looking forward to and you wanted to pick this up, but now you are angry that it is a native 1080p upscaled to 4K and you're just going to absolutely ignore this game and ignore the developers for it, because of that, it is absurd to me. Firstly, people are upset because they're thinking that it is this massive company making this game and they were lazy and that they weren't able to actually make this a native 4K on the PlayStation 5. And I don't think that is the case at all. I mean, we've seen differences between the cross-generational games even just recently with Mass Effect Legendary Edition, where on the Xbox Series X you're getting 120 frames per second, but you're not able to get that on the PlayStation 5. And again, this has a lot to do with that cross-generational backwards compatibility between the two consoles. And on top of that, the team making this game is a 20-person team out, Experiment 101. It isn't a massive AAA studio, and from what I've been seeing from the gameplay videos, this looks like an absolutely outstanding game in terms of a graphical standpoint, in terms of the open world adventure standpoint. For crafting, the combat looks awesome. It looks like it's going to be an extremely fun game, and I'm very excited to see what the reviews are for it in these next couple of days. And I am planning on picking this game up at some point and playing it on the Xbox Series X. But what this all comes down to at the end of the day is the PlayStation 5 is technically inferior to the Xbox Series X, particularly with backwards compatibility and cross-generational games. But as we go forward throughout this generation, we are going to see the Xbox Series X performing better than the PS5, as it is the more powerful console. We even saw a slight performance advantage in Resident Evil 8 on the Xbox Series X versus the PS5, and Resident Evil 8 is one of the best looking games I've seen this generation, where there were less frame rate drops with ray tracing on. compared to the PlayStation 5. And we're going to continue to see this going through this generation, especially as developers get their hands onto that GDK and really get into it more, understand it more, learn how to develop it more. And if they do optimize games to maximize their abilities, the Series X is going to just perform better at higher resolutions with ray tracing because it is the more powerful console. And those are the facts of the matter, no matter how people try to twist it in their mind. And it doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. It doesn't mean the PlayStation 5 is a bad console, and if you have a PlayStation 5 you should be upset with your purchase. But it's just ridiculous that people are going after developers and publishers because the console they have purchased is unable to support certain resolutions or certain frames. And it's funny because throughout this entire generation the talk has been that FPS is much more important than the resolution, and then when we see something like this happen where the PS5 is just not technically performing as well as the Xbox Series X, all of a sudden people are upset with the resolution. This game is still going to look great and run great at 1080p upscale to 4K, and being mad at the developers and just not buying the game for that reason alone, even if you were planning on playing it or planning on buying it, to me is absurd. Anyways guys, that's it for me. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Do you think I'm wrong on this? Do you think that you should be upset that it is 1080p upscale to 4K on the PS5, or do you think it's just the fact that there are technical issues on the PS5 that is not allowing this to happen, and you should not be mad at the developers for this, and you should be looking at the console that you own? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button if you're new here and you like what you see throughout this video. I'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button to help this channel grow, help grow this community so we can have great conversations in the comments below. Again, thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.